The anointed ones, welcome. They're observing more closely than you may realize, and more closely than they'll ever acknowledge. Here's the thing. Research indicates that individuals spend more time looking at other people's lives than thinking about their own. Does that sound familiar? Someone is probably skimming through your life like it's their favorite late-night drama series. So it should. Believe me, they are aware of every narrative twist even if they never press the like button. Why? Because your genuineness unnerved others, not just made you feel better. Your development serves as a subtle reminder of the chances they passed up, the goals they postponed, and the bravery they still lack. And now they can't stop watching because every action you make is a cliffhanger. I'm torn between wanting them to have your script and wanting you to succeed. First of all, your presence compels introspection. Your genuineness turns mirrors in addition to heads. Something changes when you enter a place or present yourself completely. People take attention, not only of your demeanor, but also of the emotions you evoke in them. They are forced to face aspects of themselves they have been ignoring, as if you were flipping a secret switch. Perhaps they have suppressed a part of themselves to fit in, buried a dream, or never took a risk. Whatever it is difficult to ignore one's own reflection when one is standing next to someone who lives life without regret. The tension starts at this point. On the one hand, people respect you for your self-assurance, independence, and boldness in being who you are. It's motivating and captivating. However, that same realism also has an unsettling effect. It makes them uncomfortable because it brings to mind the masks they wear and the concessions they have made. All of a sudden, the justifications that seemed reasonable begin to sound flimsy. When someone shows them that their objectives are achievable, the excuses they offered themselves for not pursuing them don't stand up as well. Their responses are so conflicted because of that internal struggle. Some may publicly support you, viewing your development as evidence that they too can achieve freedom. Because your success exposes the holes in their own narrative, others will silently observe from the sidelines, divided between jealousy and admiration. Some people will then minimize your accomplishments or seem unconcerned, not because they don't care, but rather because they realize that recognizing your progress requires them to face their own stagnation. Ironically, they aren't even conscious of this internal battle half the time. They just know that you make them a bit more conscious of what they've been avoiding and a little restless. However, whether they applaud or condemn, their response is more about what your presence says about them than it is about you. In actuality, that mirror is truthful, because they secretly wonder what their lives may be like if they had the guts to embrace their own honesty as well. That is the reason they continue to watch. Second, you dispel the delusion of uniformity. By blending in, being cautious, and according to the rules society has given them, most individuals attempt to fit into a mold throughout their lives. It's simple, comfy, and predictable. However, that script begins to fall apart when you present yourself as who you truly are. You turn into a living example that there is another way to live, one that does not need compromising one's own comfort in order to please others. And that's where the complications arise. The status quo is challenged by your existence. The unwritten standards that everyone abides by without question don't appear so inflexible all of a sudden. You pursue what makes you happy, speak what you mean, and dress how you want. No performance, no filter, and no diluted version of yourself are present. Furthermore, that independence is both alluring and intimidating, because a part of them respects your bravery, while another part questions why they continue to play by outdated rules. It's what you stand for, not simply what you do. Your genuineness forces people to examine their own decisions and the masks they put on to blend in. Perhaps it's the work they detest, but are unwilling to quit, the beliefs they accept to keep the peace, or the aspirations they've put on hold out of fear of failure. They are forced to face the unseen bonds they have ensnared themselves in after seeing your liberation. And that's an unsettling revelation. Their responses can be so varied because of this. In one moment, people are attracted to your energy and motivated by the way you take control of your area without asking for permission. The next, they're criticizing your decisions or doubting your achievements. Because it begs the question, why can't they live outside the lines if you can? And acknowledging that fear is the only thing preventing them from moving forward? Most folks aren't prepared to accept the reality. As a result, they observe from a distance, conflicted between supporting you and hating what your independence reveals about them. One thing is for sure, though. Your genuineness has changed something inside of them, regardless of whether they adore or envy you. And there's no turning back once that change occurs. They realize in their hearts that you didn't just shatter the mold. You demonstrated that they didn't require one at all. Humans are afraid of what they don't comprehend. Human nature is ingrained with it. Those who are still adhering to the norm become uneasy when someone deviates from it and doesn't follow the script. Not only does your genuineness strike out, but it also defies convention. Additionally, people are unsure about how to respond when they are unable to classify or predict you. They feel frightened by you because you embody everything they've been taught to avoid: being different, taking chances, and not relying on acceptance to prove your value. At the same time, they respect the freedom you've discovered. They're uneasy about what you stand for, not because they don't like you. Without uttering a word, you question their doctrine. Just your presence raises questions they'd prefer not to answer. Why do they look for approval? Why do people hide aspects of themselves in order to blend in? Why do people adhere to norms that don't satisfy them? When people see you flourishing without such restrictions, they can't help but wonder about these hidden, unsaid inquiries. This is the point at which they become afraid, not of you, but of what your genuineness makes them face within themselves. Predictability appeals to people. It gives life a sense of security. Stepping beyond the boundaries reveals that the lines were never genuine in the first place. Only cozy rules that people persuaded themselves they had to abide by. It's difficult to accept when others wonder why they ever followed such rules when you don't. Labeling you as too much or different is simpler than acknowledging that you have been limiting yourself. The catch is that curiosity frequently coexists with that anxiety. Because they long for the freedom you discovered, they are unable to turn away. They always keep an eye on everything, sometimes silently, sometimes critical. Their carefully constructed boundaries are eroded by your capacity to live fearlessly. And they secretly ponder what their lives would be like if they had the guts to follow suit. Your presence makes an impression, whether people realize it or not, because their justifications for keeping them back appear less convincing after witnessing someone overcome their fear. Number 4, they take pride in your accomplishments. Not only does your success motivate others, but it also makes them uneasy. Your accomplishments make people reevaluate the narratives they have been telling themselves for years, not because they wish for you to fail. They held that achieving success required making sacrifices, such as giving up independence for security, honesty for acceptability, and passion for stability. Then you appeared, prospering on your own terms, and all of a sudden their well-crafted reasoning is no longer valid. It seems like a quiet challenge to their decisions every time you reach a milestone. Something deep inside them is stirred when they witness you triumph, without according to the norms they have lived by their entire lives. It's more intimate than jealousy in the conventional sense. Your success makes them question if they made too many compromises along the road, settled too quickly, or played it too safe. And it's difficult to get rid of that question once it becomes ingrained. Their responses are, therefore, rarely simple. Some will publicly support you, motivated by the evidence that you can achieve success without betraying yourself. Others will silently observe from the sidelines, uncertain whether to applaud your bravery or to be angry at the reflection of your achievement in their own life. Some people minimize your accomplishments, not because they don't think you're terrific, but rather because they would have to acknowledge that they had other options as well. The problem is that you are unrelated to their sentiments. Nothing was taken from them by you. You just showed them what was possible, and that's a difficult reality to accept, especially for those who have spent years thinking that compromise and compliance are the only ways to succeed. The story is rewritten by your path, demonstrating that you may be successful and genuine at the same time. And that insight may be both freeing and unnerving for certain people. This is the reason why individuals from your past observe your development with conflicted feelings, if you've ever wondered why. It's not only about what you've accomplished, it's also about what your success means. The ability to live your life as you see fit, without regret or consent. And no matter how silently they observe, they cannot deny that fact. Your genuineness moves people's heads inward as well. People are forced to face the gap between who they are and who they could be when they witness you living as who you truly are. It shines on the aspects of them that they have hidden or disregarded, acting as a spotlight on their unrealized potential. They begin to question, what if I stopped keeping things to myself? What if I pursued the goals I've been putting on hold? What if I didn't have to worry about being judged? This insight is both energizing and unnerving. On the one hand, witnessing another person reach their full potential affirms that more is achievable. It arouses that intense, agitated sensation, the conviction that they too possess something more that is just waiting to be let loose. That understanding, however, is accompanied by a sobering reality. Their own fear, uncertainty, and hesitancy are the only things preventing people from becoming their best selves. And the tension starts there. Because your achievement demonstrates what they haven't yet achieved, rather than because you are in competition with them, your development becomes a yardstick. It's about what you stand for, a version of yourself that they haven't yet had the guts to become, rather than what you own or have achieved. Every chance you take, every objective you accomplish, and every instance in which you remain true to who you are reminds them of what they could do if they stopped limiting themselves. Their responses might be so conflicted because of this internal struggle. Some individuals will be truly motivated, viewing your achievement as evidence that they can develop as well. People will see you from a distance, conflicted between supporting you and experiencing the pain of comparison. Because acknowledging your accomplishment makes it more difficult to overlook their own unrealized greatness. Some people may attempt to minimize your success, not because they don't perceive your potential. In actuality, though, their sentiments are not really related to you. They created the divide, not you. They couldn't have turned away from your genuineness. And regardless of whether people find you admirable, envious, or difficult to comprehend, one thing is for sure. Something has been ignited in them by your presence. It's also difficult to extinguish once the spark is ignited. Number 6. You pose a threat because you are erratic. People want to categorize other people. It facilitates understanding of life. Because it makes them feel in charge, predictability makes them feel at ease. They are aware of their position in relation to others, what to anticipate, and how to react. However, it throws people off balance when you show up as who you really are, defying expectations and fitting nicely into a category. All of a sudden, they are unable to foresee your next move, which makes them uncomfortable. It's unnerving, not just startling that you can move differently. Their sense of order is challenged by the fact that you don't play by the rules they've been taught or look for acceptance. They are accustomed to folks who play it safe, comply, and follow the same routines. However, you don't hesitate to violate those patterns. You're taking chances they wouldn't dare think about 1 minute. The next, you're doing better than they ever thought possible. Additionally, they have no control over their feelings toward you since they are unable to describe or classify you. One feels vulnerable as a result of this uncertainty. People use presumptions to get through social situations, and when those presumptions are incorrect, they are unclear of how to react. Do you pose a danger to their current situation? A reminder of their potential if they took more chances? Or just someone they like but don't understand? They are uneasy because of the uncertainty. It makes people reevaluate their convictions, decisions, and self-imposed boundaries. However, their uneasiness frequently shows out in subtle ways. Not because they don't like you, but because it's simpler to condemn what they don't understand than to face the idea that they're holding themselves back. They may minimize your accomplishments, criticize your strategies, or write off your confidence as arrogance. They want to reclaim control and place you in a box that fits their worldview, which is why they feel the need to label you. However, by refusing to be defined, you make them confront the reality that their fear of crossing boundaries is the only thing preventing them from being free. And that insight is more disturbing than any erratic action you may ever take. Self-assurance is contagious. Whether they acknowledge it or not, it attracts people. The problem is that when your confidence is rooted in authenticity, when it's a natural reflection of who you are rather than an act, it does more than just draw attention. It serves as a mirror to the fears that others attempt to conceal. Their self-doubt becomes louder, more obvious, and more difficult to ignore all of a sudden. And the tension starts there. Because it embodies everything people desire: the ability to show up without worrying about being judged, to claim their abilities without undervaluing them, and to go through life without always doubting themselves. They respect your confidence. However, that awe is tinged with something more substantial: the weight of their own unsaid anxieties. They are reminded of the times they have lowered themselves to fit in whenever they witness you being true to who you are. Every chance you take causes them to reflect on the chances they've missed. They are forced to examine the ways in which they have confined themselves. When you enter a place and take control of it without looking for approval, it might be challenging to understand the love-hate dynamic that is produced by this internal struggle. They are attracted to your enthusiasm in the hopes that they may catch a glimpse of your self-assurance. Conversely, your confidence heightens their uncertainties and evokes emotions they would want to avoid. They don't detest you. Rather, they don't like how your presence makes their own inner conflicts more intense. They are therefore torn between supporting you and being angry at the image you create. Some may encourage you, using your self-assurance as motivation to take charge of their own lives. Others may turn away or try to minimize your accomplishments, not because they think you're not deserving, but rather because admitting your confidence forces them to face their own lack of it. The reality is, though, that their response reveals more about their connection with themselves than it does about you. Your confidence is the trigger, not the issue. If they can believe in themselves that deeply, why can't I? Is the question it drives people to ponder. And once it takes hold, it's hard to ignore, no matter how hard they try. Number 8. Their demand for approval is undermined by your independence. A rare form of power is independence, the kind that feels complete without praise. People are often shaken by the idea of thriving without asking for permission or acceptance. Most individuals are taught by society to gauge their value by looking at others, seeking likes, attention, and praise as evidence that they are sufficient. Then there is you going on, succeeding and triumphing without waiting for approval from others. And that contrast evokes a strong emotion. Your independence is a subdued protest against the norms upon which they have based their identity. You move with the freedom of someone who doesn't require such responses to continue, whereas they're locked in the loop of questioning whether they're liked, fit in, or are good enough. And that freedom calls into question everything they believe. It causes them to wonder if they've been holding themselves back for nothing, or if the acceptance they've been seeking is truly worth it. It's difficult to challenge those ideas, though. Recognizing that external validation isn't necessary requires them to face their fear of what could occur if they give up on it. It entails asking oneself, who am I if no one's watching? And many individuals avoid answering that question all of their lives. They are therefore forced to confront the conflict between their need for independence and their fear of standing by themselves when they witness you living that truth, owning your decisions without requiring praise. This explains why their responses are frequently so conflicting. A part of them respects your independence and is attracted to the power that comes from being self-assured without external validation. However, another area seems vulnerable, as though your independence draws attention to the unseen restraints they have decided to wear. Others will encourage you in the hopes of discovering such freedom within themselves. Not because they don't respect you, but because acknowledging your independence indicates they've been looking for approval they never really wanted. Some may reject your decisions or call you too different. Ultimately, their answer has nothing to do with you. It's about the questions your independence makes people ask, the ones that, once roused, are impossible to ignore. And whether people find it difficult to comprehend you, appreciate you, or feel jealous of you, one thing is certain: they will never forget the impact you make by thriving without approval.